It was a crisp Sunday morning in the heart of the city. Tall buildings sparkled under the rising sun, and the roads buzzed with luxury cars heading for fancy brunches and business deals, even on weekends. Among these people stood Rahil, a sharply dressed young man in his late 20s, known in his office for his designer shoes, flawless English, and the subtle way he made sure everyone knew he wasn't like the others. Rahil wasn't born into wealth. He had grown up in a cramped, two-room house in the old part of town, where his mother washed clothes by hand and sold pickles to make ends meet. His father had passed away when Rahil was just 5, and from that moment on, his mother had become both the breadwinner and the backbone of his life. She scrubbed toilets and cleaned other people's houses so her son could go to a private school. With polished boys in blazers and ties, Rahil hated the stares, the whispers, and the way his classmates held their noses when he walked in with a reused lunchbox and oil-stained uniforms. He promised himself one thing as a child: he would never be poor again. But in chasing that dream, he had buried something deeper. He buried the truth of who he was and who had raised him. Now Rahil lived in a posh apartment on the 12th floor of a high-rise, the kind with tinted windows and a doorman who saluted every time he entered. He had a job in a multinational company, a slick car, and friends who talked about stock markets and vacation homes like it was casual gossip. And for the first time in his life, Rahil felt like he belonged. That Sunday, he was hosting a small brunch at his apartment. His work friends, Karan, Ishan, and Ritika, were coming over. All of them were from good families, as they often reminded each other. Parents in politics, business, or overseas. None of them had ever used a public toilet or taken a bus. Rahil had been careful not to let them see through his carefully built image. To them, he was one of their own, a rich boy with style, charm, and confidence. Not a boy who once sold second-hand books outside a train station. What Rahil didn't plan for was his mother showing up. She had come by unannounced, holding a small bag of homemade sweets and wearing her simple cotton sari with faded flowers. Her hair was tied in a rough bun and her slippers slapped the marble floors as she walked in. "Rahil beta," she called warmly. "I brought your favorite gajar ka halwa. You didn't come home this weekend, so I thought—" He froze. His friends were on the couch sipping mimosas. They looked up, confused. Ritika blinked. "Oh, is she your—" Before she could finish, Rahil cut in sharply. "She's the maid," he said quickly, faking a half-laugh. "Old family help gets emotional sometimes." His mother stopped mid-step. She looked at him, her son, the same boy she had raised with. Her bare hands, through poverty and sickness and humiliation. She looked at his eyes, searching for something, maybe a joke, a smile, anything. But there was nothing. Rahil didn't meet her gaze. She swallowed slowly. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed the bag of sweets on the table. "I'm sorry, Beta," she whispered, forcing a small smile. "I'll leave now. I just wanted to see you." And just like that, she turned around and walked out. Rahil didn't move. He laughed nervously and turned back to his friends. "Old people, you know how they get. Sentimental." His friends laughed lightly and moved on. The moment passed for them, but something inside Rahil had cracked. The rest of the brunch went by in a blur. The food tasted like ash. His mother's face kept flashing in his mind. Her warm eyes, that stunned expression, the tremble in her hands. By the time his friends left, the apartment felt cold and empty. He walked to the table and looked at the bag she had left. Inside was a steel container, wrapped in an old handkerchief, the same kind she used when he was a child. The halwa still smelled warm, sweet. Home. And just like that, the tears came. Big, bitter ones. He had called his own mother a maid. In front of strangers, to save face, to fit in, to look rich. And in that moment he realized what he had truly lost, not his image, but his soul. Rahil didn't sleep that night. He tossed and turned in his king-size bed, the silence of the apartment, pressing down on him like a weight. Every corner reminded him of her. The polished floor she would have wiped with her own hands if he let her. The empty kitchen where her laughter used to echo back when she visited, asking if he was eating enough or sleeping well. But what haunted him most wasn't the memory. It was her silence. She didn't scold him, didn't shout or demand an explanation. She simply smiled through the hurt, placed the sweets down and left. That silence hurt more than anything else. The next morning, Raheel couldn't focus at work. His emails blurred together. Meetings felt pointless. When his manager asked if he was okay, he faked a cough and said he had a cold. But deep down, he was burning up from shame. By lunch, he picked up his phone and called his mother's number. It rang 5 times before going to voicemail. He tried again, still nothing. That had never happened before. His mother always answered, even if she was in the middle of cooking or praying or sleeping. She answered every time. Something didn't feel right. He left the office early, got into his car, and drove towards the old neighborhood. As he entered those narrow streets, the air felt heavier, familiar. It smelled like fried snacks, wet clothes, drying in the sun, and something else, truth. The truth he had run away from for years. Kids ran barefoot across the road, women gossiped on balconies, and men sat outside small shops playing cards. Everyone seemed to know everyone. It wasn't pretty or luxurious, but it was real. And for years it had been home. He parked his car a street away, embarrassed to be seen in it. As he walked towards the old building, memories hit him like waves. His mother waiting for him at the gate with a tiffin box. Her sitting by the window, stitching old clothes. Her pulling him by the ear when he skipped school. Her crying silently when he got his first job offer, and now she wouldn't even pick up his call. He climbed the familiar stairs, heart pounding. When he reached the door, he paused. It was slightly open. He knocked gently and pushed it open. "Ma?" he called. "No." "Answer." He stepped inside. The room smelled faintly of incense. Everything looked the same. Old wooden cupboard, faded curtains, the small Ganesh idol in the corner. But his mother wasn't there. On the table was a folded note with his name on it. His hands shook as he opened it. "Beta, I'm sorry for coming to your place without telling you. I didn't mean to embarrass you. I forgot. You're not my little boy anymore. You have big friends now, important people. I understand why you did what you did. I really do. Don't worry, I'm not angry. You've worked so hard to get where you are. I don't want to be a burden. I'll go stay with your uncle for a while. Just take care of yourself, eat properly, and don't forget your roots. With love, Ma." Raheel dropped the note, chest tightening. She thought she was the burden. She thought she was in the wrong. He sat on the floor, running his hands through his hair. The house felt like it was collapsing. Around him, even though everything stood still, the shame, the regret, it all hit him in full force. He looked around at the house again. The broken fan, the leaky tap, the single bed with the same blanket from his childhood. This was the place that raised him. This was the woman who gave up her life so he could have one. And he had called her a maid. He sat there for hours, head in, his hands feeling more lost than he ever had, even during his worst days of poverty. Because back then he had her. And now he had nothing. Raheel didn't know how long he sat there, knees pulled up to his chest, staring at the note. The apartment was silent, but inside his head a storm raged. He could hear her voice from years ago, singing softly while cooking, laughing when he got a prize in school, even crying when he left for his first job interview. Every sound cut deeper now, like memories taking revenge. He got up slowly, picked up the note, folded it carefully, and placed it in his wallet. He didn't want to lose it. He had already lost her. Without wasting another second, Raheel called his uncle. It took a while to get through. His uncle didn't use smartphones, and Raheel had to dig through old WhatsApp messages to even find the number. When the old man answered, he sounded tired. "Hello? Chachu. It's me, Raheel. Is Ma with you?" Raheel asked, voice tight. There was a pause. "Han, she is. She came last night, looked very tired." Raheel's chest loosened just a little. "Is she okay?" "She said she just needed rest, refused to eat dinner, slept early." "Why? What happened?" Raheel didn't answer that. What could he say? That he called her a maid in front of people? "Who didn't even matter. Can I talk to her?" he asked instead. "She's not home right now. Went to the temple early morning. Left her phone behind. You can come if you want." Raheel didn't even hesitate. "I'm on my way." The drive was long, 2.5 hours outside the city to a small town where his mother's younger brother lived. Rahil had only visited once when he was a teenager, and even then he had acted like the place was beneath him. Now the same dusty roads and cow-dung-splattered lanes didn't seem so offensive. They felt honest. His uncle's house was a humble single-story with peeling paint and a squeaky gate, but it felt more comforting than his own apartment ever had. When he reached, his uncle opened the door and stared at him for a long moment. "You look tired," the old man muttered. "I feel worse than I look," Rahil said, forcing a bitter smile. His uncle didn't ask anything. He just stepped aside and let him in. "She'll be back soon. Sit." The room had no AC, no fancy furniture, just a mat, 2 chairs, and a fan turning slowly overhead. Rahil sat down, his knees bouncing nervously. 30 minutes passed. Then he heard her voice. "Paya, I got prasad for you." She paused when she saw Rahil sitting there. For a long second no one moved. She was holding a plastic bag with bananas and some flowers in it. Her sari was soaked at the hem from washing her feet outside. Her eyes, those kind eyes, widened at first, and then slowly dropped. "I didn't expect you," she said quietly, walking past him and placing the bag on the kitchen counter. Rahil stood up. His mouth opened but no words came. She didn't look at him. She pulled out some steel bowls, placing prasad into them. "You must be busy. What brings you here?" "Ma." "I'm sorry," he whispered. Still, she didn't meet his eyes. "I shouldn't have said what I said. I was—" He paused, realizing how stupid it would sound. "I was ashamed, not of you, of myself." Now she turned and looked at him. Her face wasn't angry. It was just tired. "You said I was the maid," she said softly but clearly. "Is that what I've become to you, Rahil? Someone who just cleaned your mess until you no longer needed her?" Tears stung his eyes. "No. No, Ma. I was just trying to impress them. Those people, they care about money, about background, and I panicked. I didn't want them to look at me differently." "They wouldn't look at you differently, Rahil. You did. You looked at yourself and saw something to hide. You looked at me and saw shame." Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. "I raised you alone. I gave up my life, my pride, my health, so you could walk into rooms I was never allowed in. And when I did walk in, you erased me." Rahil dropped to his knees. "I know I was wrong. I don't deserve your forgiveness, Ma. But I'm begging you, please don't leave me like this." There was a long silence. Then she sighed, sat down on the chair, and looked at him, really looked at him. "You know what hurts the most?" she whispered. "Not what you said, but that for 1 second I believed it. I believed maybe I didn't belong in your life anymore." Rahil looked up at her, his eyes red and full of pain. "You do, Ma. You always have. And if I ever made you feel like you didn't, I swear I'll spend the rest of my life fixing that." She closed her eyes and let out a breath she'd been holding in for too long, and for the first time in days she said softly, "Then start now." The next morning, Rahil didn't return to his apartment. He stayed. He slept on a thin mattress in his uncle's front room, surrounded by mosquito nets, old newspapers, and the ticking of a wall clock from the 90s. It wasn't comfortable, not by a long shot, but for once he didn't care. His mother was under the same roof just across the hall, and that gave him a strange kind of peace he hadn't felt in years. His mother didn't speak much that day. She didn't hug him, didn't cook for him like she used to, and definitely didn't pretend everything was okay. But she didn't ask him to leave either. That to Rahil was something. He helped his uncle fix a broken pipe, walked to the nearby temple with his mother in the evening, and sat beside her while she read from her prayer book. He didn't understand half the verses, but he understood. The way her fingers moved along the page, how she paused at certain lines as if talking directly to God. That night, he asked her quietly, "Ma, can I come home? To our old place?" She looked up from her folded clothes and replied, "If you want to come, you don't have to ask. It was always your home." He swallowed. "I don't want to go back to my apartment yet. It feels empty." She didn't comment on that, just nodded, and so the next day they returned. When they walked through the door of that little two-room flat, everything looked exactly the same, but Rahil saw it all differently. The small things he used to be embarrassed by, the worn-out sofa, the plastic containers stacked like bricks, the calendar with gods on it, suddenly felt real. Not cheap, not shameful, just real. He cleaned the place, fixed the light that flickered. In the kitchen, bought new curtains, not out of guilt, he'd done that part already. Now he was doing it out of love. That evening his mother was quietly chopping vegetables when she finally spoke. "What are you going to do about your friends?" Rahil looked up from the floor, where he was organizing old books. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Maybe nothing, maybe tell them the truth." She raised an eyebrow. "And if they laugh?" "Then they're not friends," he replied. She smiled, a soft, tired kind of smile. "You've grown up now, haven't you?" she said, half teasing. He grinned. "Took me long enough." The next few days passed in a strange rhythm. Rahil worked from home, using his laptop on the same table where he once did homework as a boy. His mother would bring him tea in the same steel cup she used since he was 12. The Wi-Fi sucked, and the walls were thin, but he felt more productive than he had in months. He even started talking to neighbors, the same ones he used to avoid, fearing they'd tell his shiny new world about his dusty old one. Auntie Sunita, who used to feed him fried bread when his mother worked overtime, Uncle Rafiq, who taught him how to fix a cycle chain. They welcomed him with warmth and no judgment. They didn't care that he wore branded shoes now. They remembered the boy, who used to run barefoot, and slowly something inside Rahil began to repair itself. One afternoon, as he sat next to his mother, watching her stitch an old blouse, he asked her something he never had the courage to before. "Ma, were you ever angry at me growing up, for all the things you had to sacrifice?" She didn't look up. "Of course I was." That stunned him. She continued. "There were nights I cried, times I wanted to give up, times I hated the world for making a widow scrub floors while her son studied with rich kids who mocked him. But I was never angry at you. I was angry at life, angry that you had to grow up so fast, angry that I couldn't give you what you deserved." He felt his throat tighten. "You gave me everything, Ma," he whispered. She looked up now. "Then don't waste it trying to pretend to be someone else. You don't have to hide where you came from. You survived it. We both did." That night, Rahil posted something on social media, a photo of the gajar ka halwa in the steel container, the same one his mother had brought to his apartment, and he wrote, "I once called the woman who gave up her life for me a maid, because I was ashamed of where I came from. That was the most shameful thing I've ever done. She's not a maid, she's my mother, and everything I am I owe to her." He expected backlash. What he got instead was silence. Then slowly, comments, support. People telling him they'd done the same, that they too had hidden their parents, pretended to be someone else, and reading his post made them cry, and somewhere in that sea of messages, one stood out. It was from Ritika, the same friend who had asked if his mother was the maid. It said, "Thank you for sharing this. I needed to hear it. I owe my own mother an apology too." A week after Rahil posted about his mother, everything changed, not just outside, but inside him. He didn't walk the same anymore. There was no need to puff up his chest or hide his past. The burden of pretending was off his shoulders. He stood straighter, yes, but not with pride, with peace. But he knew this peace wouldn't mean anything unless he took it back to the very place where he had betrayed her, his office, his friends, the shallow world that had clapped for his curated life, not knowing it was built on a lie. He decided it was time to return. On Monday morning, he put on his usual work clothes, ironed shirt, slim-fit trousers, polished shoes. But for the first time, he didn't put on the fake smile. He didn't smooth over his accent or dull down his truth. He walked into the building not as someone else, but as Rahil Khan, the son of a domestic worker who had raised him through hell. The first person to notice was Karen. "Yo, man!" Karen grinned, clapping him on the back. "That post you made? Brave stuff. Really got people talking." Rahil smiled politely. "Thanks, it was overdue." Ritika followed a minute later, holding her coffee like a prop. "Hey, I read it too. I didn't know about your mum. You never said. I did, Rahil said gently. You just weren't listening. I used to say she worked in homes. You thought I meant interior design. There was an awkward silence. I'm sorry, Ritika said quietly. It's not just you, Rahil replied. It's all of us. We hear maid or worker and think it means less. That's the real problem. And he walked away, not angry, but honest. In the next few days, people looked at him differently, not out of pity but respect, real respect, the kind that didn't come from salary slips or job titles, the kind that came from truth. He even gave a short talk during the company's Inclusion and Identity Week, a small, awkward HR event that no one used to care about. But that day, when Rahil stood up and spoke, the room fell quiet. He didn't use slides. He didn't use big words. He just told the story. About his mother. About what he said. About what it cost him. I thought I was ashamed of my past, he told the room. But what I was really ashamed of that was not having the courage to honor the person who got me here. If your success makes you forget your roots, you haven't succeeded. You've just changed costumes. By the end of it, there were tears. Even his manager, usually a dry, numbers-obsessed guy, walked up and gave him a pat on the back. That took guts, Rahil, and grace. And slowly something began to shift. The same people who used to scoff at the word maid began to think twice. Not everyone, of course. Some still whispered behind closed doors. But Rahil had stopped caring about whispers. He had a voice now, and he was going to use it. One evening, while he sat with his mother at the kitchen table, helping her roll out chapatis, he looked up and asked, "Ma, what if we started something together?" She looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "A foundation, for women like you. Domestic workers, widows, anyone who raised kids like me but never got the credit." She blinked slowly. "Foundation? You think I can run such a thing?" "I know you can," Rahil said. "You've been running a whole damn life on pennies. And willpower. You think that's less than business?" She chuckled for the first time in days. "You've gotten dramatic. I've gotten real," he said. They started small, just 2 women from the neighborhood, then 5. They gave them training in basic accounting, digital payments, even taught a few how to read and write. His mother organized prayer meets and shared kitchen recipes that turned into small business ideas. Rahil built the website, used his office, contacts to spread the word. They called it Gar Se Udan, flight from home, a tribute to every mother who gave wings to their children but never got to fly themselves. And as the weeks turned to months, something beautiful happened. Not only did the women start earning more, but their children started looking at them differently, with pride, with love, with the understanding that what they did mattered, just like Rahil had finally learned. One evening, while returning from a workshop, Rahil and his mother sat in an auto rickshaw, the sun setting behind them. She looked at him and said, "You're not the same boy anymore." He smiled. "Good. That boy was a fool." She nudged him. "He wasn't. He was just lost." And for the first time, Rahil didn't feel like crying. He felt whole. It had been nearly 4 months since Rahil's world had shifted. The foundation was growing, his bond with his mother was stronger than ever, and people in the office had finally stopped treating him like some sad charity story. He wasn't a case anymore. He was just Rahil again, but a truer, better version. But peace is never permanent. It came on a Saturday afternoon. He had just wrapped up a workshop for single mothers in a nearby school hall. His mother had stayed behind to hand out snacks, and Rahil stepped outside to take a call. That's when he saw the sleek black SUV pull up by the curb. At first he didn't think anything of it. Then the window rolled down, and from the driver's seat stepped out his father's brother, Zubair. Chacha Rahil froze. He hadn't seen this man in almost 20 years. Zubair was the same as he remembered. Slick hair, gold ring on each finger, and the kind of arrogant smirk that made people want to punch him. He had money, lots of it, and not all of it clean. Rahil remembered the way this man had once looked at his grieving mother and told her, You'll be nothing without my brother. Now here he was in a fancy suit, looking Rahil up and down like inspecting a car before purchase. Beta, Zubair said with a fake smile. Long time. Rahil didn't move. What are you doing here? I heard you've been doing well, and that your mother's running some ladies' business now. Rahil's jaw tightened. It's a foundation, empowering women who were never given a voice. Unlike you. Zubair raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. Still the same fire. Just like your father. Don't compare me to him, Rahil snapped. He died young and you left us to rot. I didn't leave you, Rahil. Your mother pushed us away. She wanted to raise you on her own. Her pride wouldn't let her accept help. She didn't want your pity money, Chacha. She wanted dignity. Zubair leaned against the car, eyes narrowing. That's not what I came to argue about. I came to offer you something. Rahil laughed bitterly. A job in your shady company? No. A chance to take back your father's land in Moradabad. His name is still on the papers. The factory there, it can be yours. Rahil stared at him. You're lying. I'm not. But if you want it, you have to agree to one thing, Zubair said smoothly. You'll need to drop this social work thing. No more drama. Join the family business. Become respectable again. Respectable. Rahil felt the word stab at him like a knife. It was the same word they used when they wanted him to forget who he was. When they wanted him to be quiet, obedient, blind. He smiled slowly, then took a step forward. You think you're offering me something noble? You're not. You're offering me a shortcut back into a life I've already rejected, a life where women like my mother don't exist, where people like me are only worth something if we pretend to be someone else. Zubair blinked. You can keep the land, Rahil said calmly. I've already found something better. Zubair snorted. Suit yourself, but don't come crawling when your little NGO dries up. I won't, Rahil said. But when your world burns down, because it will, you'll remember this day. You'll remember the boy you called poor, the one who rose without you. With that, Rahil turned and walked away. His hands were shaking, not with fear, but with clarity. Back inside, his mother looked up from the snack table. You okay? She asked. He nodded. Zubair Chacha showed up. Her hand paused mid-air. What did he want? To buy my silence, Rahil replied. But I'm not for sale anymore. She didn't say anything, just reached over and squeezed his hand. I'm proud of you, she said, and for Rahil, that meant more than any land, any deal, or any fake title ever could. The invitation came on a Wednesday. It was glossy, gold-edged, and had the unmistakable polish of wealth behind it. Rahil almost threw it away, assuming it was another fake award function where rich people patted each other's backs. But the name caught his eye. The Rising Sons, a national feature on men who beat the odds, honoring sons raised by single mothers from underprivileged backgrounds. He read the entire thing twice. It was a prestigious platform, televised, sponsored by a major media house. The guest list included CEOs, celebrities, and ministers. They wanted him as a guest speaker. Rahil stared at the letter, then at the woman folding laundry across the room. Ma, he said, voice low. What if I brought you on stage? She blinked. Stage? At the event, as my guest of honor, she chuckled, dismissive. Are, what will I do there among such big people? You'll stand with me, that's all. You'll wear what you want, say what you want, and just be there. Her hands stilled. He watched her carefully. They want to hear about my journey, but there is no journey without you. She didn't answer right away, just folded another blouse, slower. This time, I've never even stepped into a hotel lobby before, she whispered. Then maybe it's time you did. The day arrived. Bright lights, cameras, hosts with white teeth and shiny microphones. Rahil walked into the auditorium with his mother at his side, dressed in a simple cream-colored sari, her hair pulled into a neat bun. No jewelry, no designer. Pag, just dignity. And somehow she stood taller than everyone else in the room. People stared, some whispered. A few assumed she was staff. But Rahil didn't care. He held her hand through the hallway, past the security, past the murmurs, right to the front row. When his name was called, the applause echoed through the hall. He walked up onto the stage, but stopped at the edge. "Can I bring someone up with—" "Me?" he asked the host quietly. There was hesitation, but then a nod. Raheel turned, walked back down and reached for his mother's hand. "Come." She shook her head slightly, panic in her eyes. He didn't let go. He led her up the steps, onto the stage, under the lights. People looked confused. Cameras zoomed in. Then he took the mic. "I was invited here today because I'm what they call a success story, a poor boy who made it big. But they only invited half of the story. The other half is standing right beside me." The hall went still. "This is my mother. She's the reason I'm here. She worked 16-hour days so I could go to school. She washed dishes in 5 houses while I gave speeches in school debates. She skipped meals so I could eat." His mother looked down, eyes misting. "And a few months ago," Raheel continued, "I made the biggest mistake of my life. I was ashamed of her. I called her a maid. I denied her in front of people whose opinions didn't matter. I chose ego over love, pride over truth." There were murmurs now. Some people lowered their heads. "I don't want applause for turning things around. I want accountability. And I want this moment to be a message to every son who's ever been ashamed of his struggling mother. You don't rise by erasing her. You rise by lifting her with you." The silence broke into a slow, steady applause. People stood. Some clapped, some cried. Raheel turned and looked at his mother. She didn't say a word. But she reached up and wiped his tear-streaked cheek with the edge of her sari. And in that moment, under the lights with hundreds watching, she leaned into the mic and said quietly, "I'm not a speaker. I never even passed school. But today I feel like I graduated. My son finally came home." The applause roared now. No one cared about the sponsors, or the celebrities, or the ministers in the crowd. They only saw her, the maid they had ignored, the mother they had overlooked, the woman they now wished they could be, and Raheel stood beside. Her not as a savior, but as a son who had finally remembered his place. Life didn't change overnight, but it did change. After the event, Raheel's speech went viral. Not because of flashy editing or PR tricks. It spread because it was raw, real. The clip of him calling his mother to the stage, the close-up of her wiping his tear, her single line, "My son finally came home," struck something in people's hearts. By the end of the week they were everywhere. News channels ran interviews. Social media was flooded with Ma and Me stories. Hundreds of young professionals, bankers, doctors, tech bros, posted about their own mothers. Women who ironed clothes at night, sold vegetables, took cleaning jobs in schools. Women they loved but had never proudly spoken of in public. Raheel wasn't trying to start a movement, but he did. And his mother, without knowing a thing about hashtags or trending reels, became the face of it. She didn't change much. She still wore the same cotton saris, still used old stainless steel containers, still prayed every morning with her head bowed and her back slightly bent. But people treated her differently now, not because she was famous, because she was seen, and for the first time in decades, respected. One morning, while drinking tea on the porch of their old apartment, she looked at Raheel and said, "You know, I'm not angry anymore." He looked up from his laptop. "About what?" "That day, when you said what you said." Raheel lowered his eyes. "I'm still angry. At myself." She reached out and touched his hand. "You were lost. But you came back." He stayed quiet for a moment, then softly, "Do you forgive me?" "I did," she smiled, "the second you cried alone in that apartment after I left." He chuckled, rubbing his eyes. "You always knew when I was crying, even in another city. A mother always knows." Months passed. Garse Udan became more than a charity. It became a movement. New centers opened in 3 cities. College kids volunteered. Corporates donated. Single mothers, domestic workers, even abused women came in, found skills, support, and, most importantly, worth. Raheel stepped back from his corporate job, took a smaller role, less money, more time. He didn't need a penthouse anymore. He didn't need validation from friends who never truly saw him. He had something more powerful now, purpose. One evening, They visited a small school where women from the foundation were being taught to use computers. His mother watched from the back, eyes wide, as one of the women, her age, typed slowly on a dusty keyboard. "She never went to school either," Rahil whispered. "But she's learning," his mother replied, her voice full of wonder. "Because of you," he said. She shook her head gently. "Because of us." And then one quiet night she fell sick. Nothing sudden. Just a deep cough that refused to go, a fatigue that even her faith couldn't push through. The hospital visits began. Blood tests. Long nights. Rahil barely left her side. The diagnosis came: lung fibrosis. Age, air pollution, years of stress had taken their toll. There was no miracle cure. Just management. Time. Moments. Rahil broke down in the doctor's office. He begged God for a trade. But his mother, she remained calm. "I've lived," she said, "more than I ever thought I would." "You should have lived better," he joked. "I lived well because of you." They sat together every day. She taught him how to cook her recipes exactly right. She made him promise to keep the foundation alive. She even made him write down her funeral wishes. Simple, no drama. Just a few prayers and one song she liked. And on a gentle dawn, with Rahil asleep beside her, her hand still holding his, she left quietly as she had lived. The funeral was small, but the world watched from afar. Thousands sent messages. Women from every corner of the country held candle vigils in her name. Gar Seudan released a tribute video that broke every heart that saw it. And Rahil, he didn't cry on the stage. He cried alone that night, holding the same steel container. She once carried Gajarka Helwa in, but when he spoke publicly it was with strength. My mother never won awards. She never sat in boardrooms. But she raised me with grace, grit and silence, and for a long time I was ashamed of that silence. I thought it made her small. I was wrong. He looked up at the crowd. Her silence raised a storm, one that changed lives, including mine. Years later, Rahil sat with his daughter on his lap. She pointed to a photo frame on the wall, an old woman in a simple sari, smiling, holding a ladle. "Who's that, Papa?" He kissed the top of her head. "That, my love, it is your grandmother." "What did she do?" He smiled. "She saved me."